Gabriel hadn't meant to be a cop. He grew up in Rosedale, a low-income neighborhood tucked beneath the shadows of the city. The kind of place where everyone knew your name and your secrets. His mother, Dolores Hart, worked 2 jobs and still managed to make pancakes every Sunday. His father was never more than a rumor passed between neighbors. As a child, Gabriel was afraid of being forgotten. Forgotten on the school steps. Forgotten at the back of food line. Forgotten in the echo of locked doors. Fear to him was abandonment. But that changed the day he met Officer Clem Monroe. Gabriel had been 10, caught trying to steal a candy bar from Mr. Foster's corner store. Instead of arresting him, Officer Monroe bought the candy bar, sat Gabriel down, and told him something that stuck. You can run from fear or you can turn and face it. Gabriel chose the latter. Eventually, years later, with a badge pinned to his chest, Gabriel became known for his gut instincts. Not the most charming, not the most political, but he listened to the silences, not just what people said, but what they didn't. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came in. Missing girl, 12 years old. Name, Ivy Moreno. Gabriel didn't flinch. He'd been through this a dozen times. Usually it was a misunderstanding, a runaway, a child hiding out at a friend's house after a bad grade or a family argument. But this time, something felt different. The dispatcher's voice wavered. Mom says she wanted to wake her for school. The door was open, bed untouched. No sign of a struggle. But she's gone. No witnesses. Gabriel arrived at the Moreno apartment 30 minutes later. It was a 4th-floor unit in an aging complex with peeling railings and uneven stairs. The elevator had been out of service since spring. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of lavender and reheated tortillas. Ivy's room was small, filled with pink accents and ballet posters. A worn plush rabbit lay on the floor. Her school backpack, untouched, still hung from a chair. Her mother, Elena, looked hollow. She clutched a necklace between her fingers. She never goes anywhere without it, she whispered. Her stuffed rabbit. She calls him Mr. Whiskers. He was on the floor. That's not like her. Gabriel took in the details. No forced entry. No signs of a struggle. No broken windows. But something was off. The door hadn't been locked. The building had no security cameras. No one in the complex saw anything. Or so they said. Gabriel began canvassing, floor by floor, apartment by apartment. Some people opened up. Most didn't. One neighbor mentioned hearing a soft thud around 3 a.m. Another thought she heard whispering. Nothing concrete, nothing solid, just fear floating in every hallway. By day 2, Gabriel knew the clock was working against him. Every hour lowered the chance of a safe recovery. They brought in search dogs, checked local parks, canvassed schools, alleyways, abandoned buildings. Gabriel skipped meals, barely slept, and then came the janitor. It was around 6 p.m. when an older man named Raymond Lee walked into the precinct. Said he worked maintenance at St. Anne's Church a few blocks from the Moreno's building. Said he saw something, or someone. Wasn't sure if it mattered, Raymond said, nervously twisting his cap. But I saw this guy dragging a duffel bag. Big one, around the back of the boiler room. Didn't see his face, but the bag, it moved. Gabriel's stomach turned. They dispatched a team immediately. The church was locked by the time they arrived. Raymond let them in. The basement was dark, cold, and smelled of mildew and wet concrete. The boiler hissed in the corner. Gabriel led the way, flashlight scanning the shadows, and then they heard it, a muffled sob behind an old storage cabinet. Wedged behind a false wall, they found her. Ivy, taped, bruised, trembling, alive. She didn't speak. She barely blinked. Her eyes had retreated into themselves, like a child who'd watched a monster up close. Gabriel scooped her into his arms, careful not to frighten her. Her hand clutched his collar like a lifeline. That night, the city celebrated. A child found alive, a tragedy averted. But Gabriel couldn't sleep. The man who had taken her was found the next day. Marcus Greeley, 36, a tenant in the same building as Ivy. Lived 2 floors down. Known for his quiet demeanor. Helped elderly neighbors carry groceries. Taught Sunday school at St. Anne's. No criminal record. It didn't make sense, except it did. Predators don't wear masks. They wear smiles. In his confession, Marcus said Ivy reminded him of his sister. Said he missed companionship. Said he didn't mean to hurt her. Gabriel felt his fists clench. There was no logic, no redemption in that explanation. Just a man's selfish loneliness turned into horror. But Ivy, she didn't speak for weeks. But when she did, she asked for Gabriel. In the hospital garden, surrounded by hydrangeas, she finally looked at him and said, "You came for me." Gabriel nodded, unsure how to respond. Everyone always says be brave, but being brave is scary. "It hurts," she whispered. He crouched beside her. "It does, but you were brave, Ivy. Every minute you held on, you were fighting." She nodded slowly, then handed him something, a drawing, childlike, crude, but unmistakable. It was a man in a dark coat, standing in a hallway, and beside him, a small girl with a stuffed rabbit. "That's you," she said. Gabriel framed the drawing, hung it right above his desk. People thought it was about saving her, but the truth, she saved him. Because for the first time since he put on the badge, Gabriel Hart understood what fear really was. It wasn't the adrenaline at a crime scene. It wasn't the dark alley or the perp with a weapon. It was the silence in a child's room when she should be laughing. It was the empty space at the dinner table. It was a mother staring at a closed bedroom door. It was knowing that no matter how fast you ran, how hard you worked, sometimes fear still won, but not this time, because Ivy lived, and she would dance again. Gabriel watched as the seasons changed in the city. Ivy's recovery, once fragile and tentative, began to gather momentum. She still bore scars, some visible, most not, but there was a steadiness now in her steps, a light returning to her eyes. Every week, her drawings grew more vibrant, less chaotic. Her therapist noted the shift, and so did Gabriel. She had started dancing again. It began with Ivy tracing ballet poses in her room, barefoot, in silence, then in the community center studio. Tentative at first, then bold, graceful. Her mother cried quietly the first time she watched Ivy spin, arms extended, defying everything that had tried to break her. Gabriel stayed on the sidelines. He didn't want to intrude, but he came often, sitting in the back row of rehearsals, staying hidden in the shadows, watching. His presence, always quiet, had become her anchor, a silent promise. You're not alone. Then came the trial. Marcus Greeley sat in the courtroom, older than his mugshot, but no less vile. He pled not guilty. His defense attorney painted a picture of mental instability, not malice. The jury didn't buy it. Gabriel testified. So did Ivy, brave and unwavering. She looked her abuser in the eye. No tears, no trembling. Just the quiet, earth-shaking truth of a little girl who had endured. The conviction came swiftly. Life without parole. The courtroom exhaled. But for Gabriel, it wasn't over. He couldn't shake the memories. Ivy's screams, the cold warehouse, the blood. He went back to therapy, something he had avoided for years. In the quiet sessions, he admitted things he hadn't dared voice. That he was once like Ivy. That the basement he found her in had reminded him of a place from long ago. A foster home, a man with a belt and a locked door. Gabriel had repressed most of it, but now the floodgates opened. He hadn't just saved Ivy, she had saved him. One evening, Gabriel sat with Ivy on a bench outside the community center. She was sketching something, her usual pad on her lap, eyes focused. "Is that a tree?" he asked, trying to make out the shape. "It's a lighthouse," she said, not looking up. Gabriel blinked. "Why a lighthouse?" She paused her pencil. "Because it sees everything in the dark, and it doesn't run away." He smiled. That night, he wept alone in his apartment, not out of sadness, but release. Months passed. Ivy danced in her first recital since the rescue. Her costume shimmered, pink ballet slippers hugging her small feet. The auditorium filled with parents and children. Gabriel almost didn't go, but something pulled him there. He stood in the back, out of sight, watched as the music began. And Ivy moved, fluid, powerful, radiant. The lights bounced off her as if they were drawn to her. When the final note played, she turned and bowed. Their eyes met. No words were exchanged. None were needed. She remembered, and so did he. In that moment, Gabriel knew something profound. Fear isn't something you conquer. You carry it, but you don't have to carry it alone. He returned to work the next week, and that's when the second call came. A missing boy, age 9, disappeared walking home from school. The street cameras showed nothing. The backpack was found in a riverbank. The mother's voice shook over the phone. Gabriel's chest tightened. Not again, he thought. He arrived on the scene, walking through tall grass, wet earth clinging to his boots. Something was different this time. He wasn't chasing ghosts. He was chasing patterns. Truth. Redemption. The boy was found within 48 hours. Alive. Cold and scared, but alive. Gabriel held him in his arms as the paramedics arrived. The boy clung to him, and Gabriel whispered the same words he'd once whispered to Ivy. You're safe now. I've got you. That night, he didn't drink, didn't numb the pain. He sat in his apartment, turned on a jazz record, and watched the city lights blink against the dark. A letter sat unopened on his table. From Ivy. He opened it slowly, unfolding the paper like it might dissolve in his hands. Inside was a drawing. A lighthouse. On a hill. The ocean crashing below. And beside it, a tiny figure in a trench coat, standing firm, light shining behind him. There were only 3 words written at the bottom. You never left. Gabriel smiled. Not the bitter, exhausted smile he wore for years. A real one. And he knew this wasn't the end of the story, but it was a beginning. For Ivy. For him. For every broken soul still waiting for light in the dark. Because sometimes the quietest heroes don't wear capes. They wear scars. And sometimes they simply stay. Sometimes the most terrifying stories leave behind the brightest lights. Subscribe to Mysterious Crime Box for more soul-stirring true crime tales.